To the public?
Hi, Amy Syracuse. So I'm here tonight, actually. I've spoken at the December meeting. It was a very jam-packed meeting, and I'm sure mine were not the most memorable comments, but I did speak about something that was maybe a little bit different from what others spoke about, and that was transparency and the possibility of broadcasting Board of Education meetings to the public. Speaking of shared services, the topic that came up tonight in Oradell, our borough has made an excellent investment in technology and equipment for OPTV, the local public television station. And so I pursued this after the meeting with Dorothy. We've had a few email exchanges. I ran into you at the post office, and you basically told me if I wanted to research it, that it was my prerogative to do so, that wasn't something you had time for at this moment. And I know that you did give permission for residents to broadcast, but actually in reviewing the board's policies, I saw that that clause already existed, and it actually, you don't need to ask permission, you just have to notify. So I think that's great that we're doing that now, but I did pursue this, and I'm here to talk about what I've learned. I had hoped to hear from you in response to the letter that I mailed on Friday or dropped off, but I didn't. And I think it's also good for the people who are not here or anyone else in this room to know what's going on. I spoke to Nick Bessink at OPTV. He said there are two options to work through OPTV to broadcast meetings. One of them is the Board of Ed could move meetings just one block away to Borough Hall. There would be no cost, and Nick is confident that he could secure adequate volunteer coverage to do that. In fact, I didn't include this in my letter, but it's worth asking the question as you research this, whether there's actually a potential cost savings to doing that, at least small, but in terms of the custodial setup and cleanup time for your meetings. Obviously, if you move to a room that's meeting ready, that isn't an issue. The second option is that you could continue to broadcast to have your meetings here at OPS, and in order to have a professional quality recording, you would need to buy a small amount, about estimated at $2,500 worth of audio equipment. Microphones, Nick could outline it all for you and give you the specs. And of note, that equipment would be portable. It would not be fixed to any room. It could be used for any purpose throughout the school. Are you timing me? Okay. Sorry, I thought that was a clip. I had addressed some of your questions in my letter. You'd expressed some concerns about privacy. I don't know how relevant those are. There are a lot of ways to get around that, whether it's through the existing releases that the school already has, whether it just means not taping portions in which a student makes a presentation. That's really not something you need to concern yourself with, or at least consider prohibitive to having this discussion. And as far as funding, I mean, the amount is very low. It's actually free if you were open to moving your meetings. So again, I don't think it's anything that should dissuade you from having this discussion and having it publicly. I feel that there are a number of benefits and opportunities for the public, for school staff, and actually quite a few for the Board of Education itself. I'm not going to read my lengthy descriptions, but I will read the highlights. Nurturing an informed and engaged public, ensuring the health and succession of the Board of Education, providing an indisputable public record of Board of Education discussions and decision-making processes. And I do want to bring this one up because it occurred to me now that you have someone who's videotaping these meetings. I don't know if you're at least doing an audio recording of your own. If you aren't, obviously that makes sense. In this day and age, video and audio can be very easily manipulated. And if you don't have your own official public record, I think you may want to consider doing so. And finally, boosting public trust and meeting the high standards that have been set by other borough entities. We know that the mayor and council already broadcast their meetings, planning board, zoning board, as well as the Riverdale School District Board of Education. So in terms of how to proceed, what I've asked, I know that the budget has already been submitted, but I've asked for this Board of Ed to create a committee to investigate this appropriately. I'm not a Board of Ed member. It really wasn't my job to do this. I'm happy to do so, but I think it's appropriate now for your public relations chair to take the torch and carry on, to have a conversation with Nick, to put together a proposal, and to make recommendations for beginning broadcasting of meetings with the September 13th meeting, which would be, I believe, the first meeting of the next school year. And finally, to allocate funding or to consider moving the meetings and have a discussion about that. And finally, I'd just like to make sure that this discussion takes place in full view of and with participation from the public. Thank you.
We've actually already had discussions. I've discussed it.
Not publicly, though.
We'll have it now also. We'll have another discussion now. But I've discussed it relations. We've had it, we discussed it in finance. We discussed it with the superintendent. And,
You're breaking up a little bit.
the first thing I want to say is that as far as the privacy issues, I did check with the attorney. There are none. A person from the public can video record and put it on any channel they want. So there's no issue there at all. Because we will not be taking responsibility for it, so there's no. So there are two other issues. One, from the discussions I've had with the board, and we can have more now, but the board is not interested in moving our meetings since it's a school building. We have many meetings before, sometimes we do things. The town and the school are separate, so we are going to be staying here. As far as funding it, I had said at the time in December, the board does not have the money. And I know 2,500 is nothing, it sounds like nothing. But we just passed the budget where we took every penny of that cap we had to keep our programs going. We had to cut our school counselor, we were able to put it back. We ended up cutting technology. What else did we cut? We cut a lot of things out of this budget. So even though the thing is 2,500, it felt weird.
Right.
In good conscience, we cannot do that.
Okay. There's other ways to get that money.
Right. So we can have this discussion now. We've had it in committee, we've had it with the superintendent, but I think the feeling is you are more than welcome to pursue it. But the board is not going to pursue it. We're not going to fund it, and we don't want our admins involved in it either because they have too much. But as the public, you have the right to record. You can raise the money through the PTA or whatever you want, and you can do it. Just you would have to fill out a building use form, request permission to set up whatever, and you can do it. And I know you can say we're not being transparent, but that is the answer.
I've actually spent too much of my time really reading through your policies, reading through the description of your roles, and I can read them out loud here to you, and I can show you exactly where you're falling down on some of your communications duties. I'll be honest with you. You're going to say to me, we have meeting minutes, and that's great. I went back to the December 21st meeting minutes, and I read them. And I was at that meeting, and I know what transpired at that meeting, and I could read to you out loud now the description of that meeting, and I could take a vote and have people tell me whether they agree if that the meetings were true to what transpired. They were not. They were not accurate. They were riddled with typos. I mean, this is not a professional way to communicate, and if you're comfortable with that, own it. Own it. And give me the reasons why you think that it is not your duty, because one of the board's roles is to interpret the information for the public. And you are not doing that, I'm afraid, by simply providing minutes and telling people, come here at our convenience. That is not the job you signed up for.
I want to clarify what the purpose of the minutes are. No, I am not happy if there are typos in the minutes. I do try to go over them, but that is not acceptable. And everyone in the board office has heard that from me and knows that. However, the purpose of the minutes is not to transmit what every conversation at the board meeting. It is to record the vote. That is the purpose of the minutes. So it's not to take a written record of
Then where else, point to me, what other communications are you putting out that are fulfilling the role that is in your policies outlined as interpreting for the public what you're doing, what you're
honestly, what our obligation is legally is to have public meetings, and that's what we do. Our obligation is to have a public meeting where you can come. And that's our business.
Well, I'm going to read your own policy to do that. Communicating with the public. The board will keep the community informed of the status of the schools through advertised public meetings, press releases, which I have not seen, and such other means as may be appropriate. The public information program of the board and the district shall be directed by the chief school administrator, who shall arrange to keep the public informed regarding the policies, administrative operations, objectives, and successes or failures of the schools, and shall provide interpretation and explanation of the school's plans and programs.
And That doesn't happen all of our meetings.
Where is that happening?
Any,
Outside of whatever that transpires at the meeting, where is that happening?
well, in the past, sometimes our superintendent would have a newsletter that would go. We
When was
had-
the, I know there was
we
not
had
one put out.
what was that?
So where is that happening at present? I'm happy you used to do these things, and that's wonderful, and I applaud that.
I guess
Where
I
is
will
it
have- I will
coming
have
from
to
now?
look into it.
Are you gonna dig into it like you dug into my question in December that I
I'm
had
going
to
to ask
research
Mr.
for you?
Ansel here to give us some suggestions on what he feels would be appropriate.
Okay, well, listen, I appreciate that. I look forward to hearing from you proactively instead of me chasing this. And, you know, I'm sorry, I've come to you with something I believe is important, and not just for my own personal reasons, but for the entire community. I believe it is a win-win-win. Now, if you choose not to pursue that, I've asked nicely, I've asked formally, I'm happy to put that out there socially and let you deal with the repercussions. But I think you really are not giving this an appropriate amount of thought and consideration.
Any other comments? All right. Old business.
I don't know whether this is all new business or business, but again, just Tracy Sean has done such a wonderful job with that Odyssey of Mind. And if I look back, how many years has it been, Tracy, since you've been doing?
Whenever Erickson was in there's only 9 years?
So he was in fifth grade.
It feels like 20.
It's tough when you're at.
9 years. 9 years, then this will be the 5th trip to World, so it's, yeah.
And that was going to be my second question, 5 years.
This will be the
to
5th,
work.
yeah.
So something has to be said, and certainly we have wonderful students that accomplish these tasks, but we really have to thank you for what you've done, because without the leadership, and we're not talking about the same kids all the time, so you're taking them and nurturing them to think out of the box and to create these things that go so far, not only nationally, worldwide. What an accomplishment. So we can't thank you enough as a board, and I'm sure the school community for you. So
Thank you, and thank you for your continued support. I know some years it seems like, I ask for more than others, and I know the building use is crazy, and I probably need my own building. But we do spend 526, last year was 526 hours outside of school on Saturdays and weeknights, and crazy hours without the competitions, without being away from home for 9 days in Iowa. I had just had a conversation with Ms. Bozius that I really would love for the board to be able to see what it's about. Mrs. Nichols' son was there the first year. It was absolute and utter chaos and cardboard and duct tape, and we've really come so far that I would love to find a time, probably before we go, for you even, we're here this Friday night. We're here Saturday from 8 to 4. We'll be here generally on Friday night, so if you're on your way to dinner and you want to just stop by the multipurpose room, the kids are always willing to talk about what they've done. They're very, very proud. And I just think that you need to see it to understand the scope of what they've done. I play music and I spend hours, but it really is them, and I think you would be so, so proud of them. And, to publicly also thank OK Kids for supporting and extending the opportunity. One of the greatest things for me has been to be able to see how typically I would have 5th graders who then go to 6th grade and then the program would end. And this current team has a student from 8th grade who's now in her 4th year, and the rest are 3 years each on that team. And just to take plastic water bottles and to see the difference in what they've done and how it's built each year is absolutely tremendous. And the student that in town who just won the national